We are live. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another stream. I am in a special little silent booth in the library, which is fun, trying this out for the first time. And my guest is Jordan Von Erickson. And Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're going to talk about mind control, trauma-based mind control, and also techniques on how to heal trauma-based mind control. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to pull up your channel.
Okay, sure. So I'm Jordan Von Erickson. When I was 16, I got sent to it was marketed as a boarding school, but it was a behavioral modification school where they use mind control, a bunch of different techniques. We could be here for hours if I was going over all the techniques, but essentially it was breaking you down and not rebuilding you. Well, they said they were trying to rebuild you, but they didn't end up doing that. They just ended up breaking the individual down. I spent 22 months there. I was in solitary confinement, in between solitary confinement and what they called study hall, which was essentially writing sentences, like 1,000 to 10,000 sentences. You could be in there entire days. Spent my first year in between there in solitary confinement. And then they scared me with Jamaica. They said, if you keep on acting up, we're just going to send you to Tranquility Bay in Jamaica, where they don't even have child protection laws. So if you want to act like how you're acting here, they'll break your arm, etc. And so they scared me into compliance. I started working my program. Essentially, I was in fear for my life. I essentially, whatever I need to do to get out of this place and stay alive. And so worked
real quick. I'm sorry. Just so everybody knows, I'm showing everybody his channel and all the interviews that he's been doing with survivors of the school that he's talking about. Go ahead.
And so I worked my program. Took me about a year to get out of there. When I started working my program, got out, got heavy into hard drug use, and spent about a decade doing that. Recently, I got clean. I have like over 3.5 years clean. I'm on methadone right now, working on tapering off, and I smoke marijuana, but that is it. And when I got off hard drugs, I decided I wanted to expose these schools, and I realized it was a huge problem still. So I started my podcast, Straight Out of BS podcast, that he's showing right now. And I've done over like 147 interviews and counting. I'm still doing interviews. I have like the next 2 months booked out with interviews. But if anybody's watching and you went to a school like that, get a hold of me and we'll schedule you as well. But I've also recently branched out into exposing abuse of all kinds, including human trafficking and stuff like that. So go ahead and check me out. And that's pretty much me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so let me see, where do we start? So, across the board, basically, trauma-based mind control is a very intense form of mind control. I did a little bit of, I thought it'd be interesting to see if Gemini could give us a quickie on this thing. And just trauma-based mind control is the intentional infliction of severe trauma, often starting in childhood, to induce dissociation and create altered personalities that can be programmed. The use of specific symbols and hold on a second here, because what we're talking about here is a gradient of it's all the same thing. It's just in different gradients of programming and affecting the mind. Basically taking the mind out of real time here. When trauma happens and it's too intense in the moment, we dissociate. We create an altered personality to be able to deal with the situation. And then as we get older, it's running our show. When you're awake, when you're awake, you're in present time, aware of everything that around you and aware of what's going on. You're digesting what is occurring. The unconscious and the conscious are flowing in movement. But when the trauma happens on very subtle degrees, such as it could be like I've said this example many times, you're 5 years old, you're stepfather who woke up, who's an alcoholic, drives you to school, and you get out and you say something that he takes personal, and he gets out of the vehicle and he spanks you in front of your friends. You have now been traumatized. You don't even know how to deal with this because you're not an adult, and this is the end. The world has ended for you. You have to now go into school and be horrifically humiliated by your friends. That will call that on the bottom. And then it works its way up to where somebody is molested by their uncle or has been beaten by their father, or their mother is a drug addict and affects them. And this goes all the way up to trauma-based mind control, which is where you're going to get into what we're going to talk about, which is the most extreme, which which is called the Monarch Project. I don't know if they all fall under that, but this is apparently connected to the Hollywood scene. But you've got trauma. You got the intentional infliction of severe trauma, often starting in childhood, to induce dissociation and create altered personalities. The altered personalities, again, on the deepest levels of this thing, are used by the powers that be to trigger their slaves for sexual services, or for political services, or for assassinations, or whatever it is, and they're able to switch their personalities into the thing that they want to use them for. And they use specific symbols, colors, or phrases to trigger program responses in the victims. You'll find from Fritz, what is it? Fritz Springmeier. He talks about, he studied this for a long time, and he talked about how they used movies such as The Wizard of Oz to trigger alters for particular things. They tell them to watch the movie, and a particular thing in the movie would trigger them, and they go off and do the thing they're going to do. Sexual abuse and exploitation, they have been exploited as part of their programming, and then government agencies that like I just said, that use them for their own purposes. There is a girl that, of course, Gemini is going to say, oh, there's lack of evidence and blah 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 blah. There's a girl named Allie Carter, and I will show you her face really quick before we get started, so people know she is there's not very well. There are more and more people coming out that are that have been involved in this, that are blowing the whistle. But Allie Carter is one who has had to travel around, and because they are, she can't stay in one spot too long. She's one who's suffered from the worst kind. She can name names, and she has split personalities. So just real quick, I'm going to show you her. Let me see if she's even on YouTube. Be surprised. Okay, here we go. So let's just show you guys really quick. I'm surprised it's on YouTube, but I've noticed YouTube's loosened up a little bit. It is loosened up a little bit on stuff. I'm kind of surprised. But let's look at Allie here. Okay, so this is Allie Carter. Highly recommend her. She's actually Tupac's child. She says that Tupac actually didn't die. She said that she talks about the freak off attendees. She talks about the underground tunnels that they traffic the kids with. And she's someone to really, really watch. And you will see in some of these videos, you will see her she'll see her switch personalities from a little child to a different personality. So she has different ones. So so she's Tupac's child. So if you guys want to see what this thing looks like, I highly recommend that you look up Allie Carter. I want to say hi real quick this morning. My faithful, wonderful Tina. She's our moderator, and I appreciate you being here. Okay, so let's just chat a little bit, Jordan, and then I want to go over to. We'll touch on we're going to touch on this as sort of from vigilant citizen. We're going to talk about the origins and techniques of monarch mind control. So having said that, laying the foundation that there is a gradient, and it's all about controlling a human being that's in present time. When a child is born and they breathe, they're cooing, and and so a soul is able to grow in the environment of present time. When a soul is taken, a mind is taken at a present time through trauma. This is where you get your psychological complexes. This is where you get, all of this stuff where the being, this energy being, is now dealing with a split in itself. It's always that split. A soul is one flower that grows in the inner realm, and it is connected to all things. There's a presence about it. But when it is split, then you're at war with yourself, and you have this part of you that's haunting yourself. So as you can tell just from me saying that, I'm sure you put together that really serious trauma-based mind control victims. You can see why just on a basic simple level you have this split self, and you're fighting with yourself on, why can't I make decisions, why can't I do this and that, right? We'll try going into trauma-based where it's literally another entity inside themselves. So it's a very serious thing. Okay, so Jordan, what's on your mind regarding this? Because this was all Jordan's idea, by the way, and he deals with this people that have been in this cult for a long time.
Well, I just think it's really important. It needs to be touched on more. Like you said, it's a gradient. There's different ways this happens. Like a lot of people that I went to the schools that I went to, or the kind of schools I went to, whether it be religious schools, wilderness programs, T.T.I schools, you name it. They were all under some form of mind control, whether it was like physical mind control, where you're like, we're going to control every aspect of your life. Like you have to do things a certain way. You have to, in wilderness, for example, you have to lead the pack. You have to be the one to lead the pack. And if you lead them in the wrong direction, then everybody's mad at you. So you're the bad person. So there's very subtle ways this happens. In the boarding schools, they used isolation, food deprivation, let's see, they use, making you write sentences, thousands of sentences over and over again. I won't do this. This was bad because of this. I'm a bad person because of this. And then it just gets solidified in you as this must be the kind of person I am. I know a lot of people also that were forced to admit to things that they never done before, to an extent where they're not sure if they did that or not. If that even happens. So there's forms of that. They use small groups to tear each other apart. Attack therapy was a big thing, using your peers to tear each other down. And then there's forms like you're talking about, like trauma-based mind control, which I would probably argue is, happening to a degree in these boarding schools. It happens in the government. It happens in a lot of places people would never think that it happens. And it's happening. And it can happen, like, as you said, just as something as subtle as, you showing your father a drawing and, him saying, oh, I don't have time for that. Something as small as that to somebody else as a child can be devastating. And you might not even realize that it's happening.
Yes.
And that's another point I want to touch on, is that a lot of people that are under mind control, one of the reasons it works so well is because you don't know you're under mind control. You do not know. So it's hard to get out of something you don't even realize you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird for people to. It's so common, it's so systemic that I think it's underplayed, especially for people who don't think they've ever even experienced it, like experienced the subtleties. Like, it's normal to be sort of dissociated from the universe, but when when you're born, you're one with life. You're already there. So being born into a culture where it's systemic to be split off, it's systemic to be like, feel like you're not part of everything, like this ego is almost immediately developed, where there's a me that's kind of like, there's a programming from parents and the programming from the system, and then, but your natural state, enlightened state, is one with all things. That's a knowingness that one has grown up with. But everything that you're saying is really the same things that you find in the first cult is childhood. And I want to just share, I just did a little thing with Gemini, because Gemini is my new girlfriend. And Gemini Live isn't fascinating. You can have a conversation, but just to share, I did what you were just talking about is what is called mind control. So you were talking about isolation. So the idea is, so think of this too when we're looking at this, think of how this applies to the first cult, which is your family. So it's also known as brainwashing. Is a system of manipulative techniques used by destructive cults and other high control groups to influence and control their members' thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors, and involves a gradual process of breaking down an individual's sense of self, their core sense of power, and replacing it with a new identity aligned with the group's ideology. So again, apply this to childhood. This is why it's so important to individuate. When you're individuating, part of that process is you have to metaphorically kill your leaders. You have to kill the Buddha on the road to actually evolve into your own true plant, your true thumbprint, of which you have emanated from the life itself. So you have to transcend your parents. You have to metaphorically kill the parent in order for you to grow into your true expression. But so we have isolation, limiting contact with friends, with family and friends outside the group, creating dependence on the group for social and emotional support. Where do you get that with families? You have an over-controlling mother or father who basically tells you what reality is and doesn't let you think for yourself. And shame-based, you get spanked, you get grounded if you show any will. Also mixed with that is love bombing. Well, I love you, it's for your own good. So we're sharing what this is related to cults, but I'm referencing it to the childhood, to the family as well. So showering new recruits with excessive affection and attention to create a sense of belonging and acceptance. So the parent is also going to say, I'm your parent, I love you, this is for your own good, I know better. And this is all manipulation to control the child's body and words. That's the thing. All the brainwashing and all mind control is about controlling the body and the words. So making them do your will. It's about will. Is the child being able to be the will of the universe, expressing itself in its own unique way? Or are other humans taking over the energy like a vampire to use it for its own aims? That's what a cult does. Thought reform. You got to reform the thought. Indoctrination through lectures, study sessions, and rituals that promote the group's beliefs. So there you got the emotional stuff. You want to get that emotional connection in there too. That's part of the ritual and the mind control. Of course, you got to have guilt, shame, fear, and other emotions to control behavior. So breaking down the core self, the sleep deprivation and dietary restrictions, weakening physical and mental resistance. Did you have that also? How was the diet in the cult you grew up in? How did that affect you with food and such?
So when you first got there, every school is different, and I want to state that. So like, especially the schools in other countries, they barely even had food to eat on a daily basis. But with the place,
what was the school called real quick while you're?
The one I went to was Spring Creek Lodge Academy. It was in Thompson Falls, Montana, about 30 miles from the nearest town in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere.
And what's the name of the organization?
So there's, the organization has changed names a lot over the years. But the one that everybody really knows about and can point to is called WASP. The acronym, it's an acronym, and it stands for Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in Schools.
Okay, I didn't want to derail you. I just wanted to look this up while you were talking.
No problem. And so the one specifically that I went to, when you first got there, like you couldn't have sugar in your oatmeal. Like there was you couldn't have any condiments, essentially like salt, pepper, mustard, mayo, ketchup, anything you can think of as a condiment, you weren't allowed to have. And you came in at level 2. But if you dropped back to level 1, at least when I was there, you couldn't have condiments. So they limited that. You had to eat a certain portion of everything that you were served. So even if your body didn't agree with it, you still had to eat it, or you get consequence for not eating enough. And so stuff like that was big.
Okay.
As far as the food.
I'm just going through some of what's coming up on Google.
Specialty programs. Type in
Worldwide Association of Specialty Schools.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Troubled teen industry right there. Yeah. Now you're getting to it. Yep.
There we go. So all of these teens. So this is all really a brainwashing program, and on Jordan's channel, he's been interviewing hundreds of these survivors of this whole thing.
If and the one where they're laying down, go back.
Mm-hmm.
Go back real quick. The one where the kids are laying down. That's called a stress position, or I can't remember what position that's called, but that was in Tranquility Bay, Jamaica, and that was a way of torturing you. You had to lay there on the ground in a certain way for hours.
Yeah, so there we go back to the control of the body.
Yep.
The control of the body.
Yep.
Okay, and we got. So this is Thunder Voice Hat. Is this the school?
No, that's not the one.
Different. Is it a different school?
Yep. It's a different school. We don't even have like a true system to keep track of all of these schools. And the problem is that new schools are being made like probably every day, like in new schools opening up, and we don't really have a system to track these schools.
So they're still going strong.
Oh yeah. This is still happening. This is huge.
So this is for controlled teens, and basically what they do is they're using tough love. Yep. And their parents just hand their kids over to this organization, and this organization treats them. It's kind of like boot camp, but it's an abusive type of boot camp. Like we had this conversation before, how it reminds me of also YWAM, not like yours. It's a little bit by Youth with a Mission, a little bit, but highly disciplined. We're going to enforce and turn you into the obedient, right? The obedient. We're going to make you a good person for society, blah, 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 by forcing this. So it's not through love. It's not through communication. It's not through understanding. It's through force. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yep. Yep, definitely. And then also, there's the religious side of this that has schools like this too, where they use, we're a Christian organization, or we're a Catholic organization, or whatever the religion may be. So we could never be doing anything bad to the kids here. And then behind closed doors, they're doing the most deplorable things you could ever think of to children and teenagers. Right. Is this
the documentary?
Yep, that is a documentary called The Program, and it's on Netflix, and it points to a lot of the schools that a lot of people went to. I think it highlighted about like 4 or 5 different schools, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah.
There you go with the laying down. So this is the school. This is the program that you came from.
No, that wasn't the one I went to.
Right, but it's the same type of.
Yeah, the same type of program. Yep.
Yeah. All to control the children through tough love, and it's like, wow, have you not figured out that you're pushing these people away?
Just being sent away or transported for a lot of people was enough to never talk to their family ever again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you think you're reforming the family, you're doing the complete opposite by making that decision.
The cult that spawned the tough love teen industry. The idea that punishment can be therapeutic.
Yep.
Is not unique to the Rottenberg Center. Is that one of the?
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep.
In fact, this notion is widespread among hundreds of emotionally growth boarding schools. It's fascinating, this harsh approach to helping troubled teens has a long and disturbing history. Yeah, it's a lot of what happened with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. It's a Christian organization. No fewer than that I went to, so I relate to you on this. No fewer than 50 programs can trace their treatment philosophy directly or indirectly to an anti-drug cult called Synanon, found in 1958. Synanon sold itself as a cure for hardcore heroin addicts who could help each other by breaking new initiates with isolation, humiliation, hard labor. Yeah. So it's not, this is the thing why it's so important is it's not done in love.
No.
It's done. It's like it's like poisonous pedagogy. It's like, what do we do? And I believe it all comes out. So much of this comes out of the Catholic Church. You're born in sin. You're just natively, there's something wrong with you. You can't trust your inner realm. You can't, and they split off and all this stuff. So we're trying to fix you. But it's interesting because the universe is it's its own system that's communicating with itself. It's like a web, the web of weird, as the I think it comes out of the Druids and the Celts, the web of weird. And it's like the communication starts in childhood. It's all communication. And the child needs to have this ecosystem that's communicating with itself. So it's in this symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so this thing just gets out of hand. It just gets out of hand as the child grows up. It grows into this tree where the little things. But was it in the Bible? It says, "Do not harm one of these little ones." Yeah. Or you have you'll have your a millstone with a rope wrapped around your neck and thrown into the ocean. Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty big deal from the story of Jesus to not harm one of these little ones.
Yeah.
So it is really a fascinating thing. Angela A. Pavlov's corn dog. So that's something that, as one who was raised in a cult, not only an actual religious cult, but my own family was a cult. The work that I've had to do to deprogram myself from the physical and emotional trauma from my family, and then deprogram myself from the Christian cult.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. And this is why the evil powers that be, go after the children, because they can use them like robots as they get older. They know if they inflict them deep enough, they'll have control over them. This is what in trauma-based mind control, you have the handler. Yep. Well, the parent also becomes your handler.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And the person says, I just can't, they're adults, and like, I just can't, be around my mom because I feel like I lose power and I'm controlled. It's the same thing.
Yep. Yep. No, I completely agree.
So let me see here. So how is, like, with the people that you're interviewing, are you finding a lot of people that were severely affected by this, or there's sort of a general what's the gradient like? Because you've interviewed, over 100 of these people from this cult. What's the feedback that you're getting?
Okay, so there's a very small percentage of people, but it's still, it's still a group of people that went through these places and thought it was the best thing. Well, not like the best. Well, there are some of those people too. There's an even smaller percentage of people that thought it was literally the best thing that ever happened to them, and they learned a ton from it. Then there's a step down from that, like they went through it and it's not a big deal because it's in the past. And so either, the reality is of it, they just don't want to deal with it. So they put it in the past. I'm just not going to deal with that. And some people are able to do that. And then there's a larger almost all of these people that I interview are deeply affected by this. There's gradients to it. There's deeply affected, and then there's it affects me, but it doesn't affect me to a degree where I can't hold a job. I can't be a normal functioning human being. Right. Me personally, I'm on disability because of all the trauma that I've been through in my life.
And this is by the way, folks, this is Jordan's YouTube channel where he does interviews with all these people from these schools that are sharing their story. Go ahead.
And so for me, it's just been, I'm still working on myself, and just things like holding a job and being around other people. being around other people gives me major anxiety if I don't know who I'm around. Like if I don't know
Right.
who's around me, it gives me major anxiety.
Right.
I developed almost an agoraphobia to a degree. I stay in my house a lot. I don't go out much. I don't even talk to people. Like even like talking to people on the phone gives me anxiety. If I'm not like, I have to like plan out sometimes phone conversations if I don't know the person well.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like I need to protect my energy and protect my space. I feel
Right.
like that's part of it, but also I know that the mind control is part of that, and just like the trauma I went through is part of that too. Like
Right.
it has shaped me into a person. Like for example, before I went into the program, I was a lot more outgoing. Ever since I got out of the program, I've introverted into my shell. So
Mm,
I'm like the opposite
yeah.
of who I used to be.
Yeah.
And it tears me up inside because I want to be social, and I want to be able to hold conversations with people. Even going up and talking to somebody new in public is just like,
Yeah.
it's so daunting to me. It's
Yeah.
like terrifying. Like I'm so
Yeah.
worried about like getting rejected or whatever it might be, that because
Right.
I know that having those things happen is going to have a really profound effect on me to a degree that it doesn't affect normal people like that. You know what I mean?
It's very crippling. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very crippling. And if you do a search on the lasting effects of generational child abuse, you'll find, the facts here. The long-term outcomes of childhood abuse, it affects people a lot more than people understand, because what happens, and they'll like, you're like the people that you were saying that like this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It's very, very common if you talk to a psychologist for a therapist to say, well, they come in and the first couple sessions, they think they had the greatest childhood ever, or they say it wasn't that bad, they poo-poo it, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, they find out, wow, that's why I have an addiction. Wow, that's why I can't keep a relationship. Wow, because they came to realize that, because that's who they were. They justified it as they got older, and they didn't know what the problem was. But childhood abuse is positively related to adult depression, aggression, hostility, anger, fear, anxiety disorders, and personality disorders.
Yeah.
At least 3 meta-analyses on the effects of childhood sexual abuse find clear, convincing evidence of a link between such abuse and a host of adult psychological symptoms. It's epidemic. From childhood, Kessler and Maggie found childhood abuse to have consistent, significant effects on early onset and recurring depression, and that violence from siblings or multiple family members was most strongly associated with recurring depression.
Yeah.
There's also, if I go back over to, I did a little Gemini search too. Gemini's my new girlfriend. We go over to Gemini. I did a little search, and Gemini said, generational child abuse casts a long shadow with its effects rippling through families. The trauma experienced in childhood can leave deep wounds that shape a person's physical and mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. You have mental health disorders. There's also a transgenerational epigenetic effect. There's also inherited trauma. So if you come from a family of, suffered from child abuse, low self-esteem, shame, that is brought into your, you born with that in your nervous system. So mental health disorders, adults who experience child abuse are at a significant higher risk for developing mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance abuse. Difficulty with emotional regulation. They may struggle to manage their emotions, experience intense anger, fear, sadness. This can lead to difficulties in personal and professional relationships. So this is why I'm in my spiritual path that I teach. It always goes to the root, which is the child. Always goes there. And I think that systems that teach anything else is teaching spiritual bypassing.
Yep.
low self-esteem and a negative self-image. The child abuse often distills feelings of worthlessness, shame, and self-blame, which can persist into adulthood. Here's a huge one: trust issues.
Yep. Major.
Difficulty trusting your others and forming a foundation of healthy attachments is common, stemming from betrayal and violation of trust in childhood.
Definitely.
There's dissociation. In cases of severe abuse, individuals may develop dissociative disorders because you're trapped in childhood. You're trapped in the land of giants. You can't go anywhere. You can't leave. And if you try to leave, you will be tracked down by the authorities and you will be arrested.
Yeah.
You can't leave. Whoops, sorry about that. And just to complete these, then you have relationship difficulties. You've got social isolation. See, all of these I have experienced, and I still, to a degree, experience this.
Yep.
Individuals withdraw from social situations due to fear, shame, difficulty connecting with others, parental challenges, and then this talks about breaking the cycle, which we can talk about shortly. But and one of the things that I want to point out, that's what leads a lot of us into the spiritual path. I mean, this was a catalyst for me to I had to become self-realized. I had to understand, and but even as my soul has flowered, I still live within the confines of these things, but I'm aware of these things. I radically embrace these things. But it is interesting because I think also when you go into the inner realm, because it's systemic, okay? And and generational child abuse is systemic. So when a person begins to grow in the inside and begins to become self-realized and undo the false and all the stuff that, they became in this culture, I think it's common for people to become more isolated. And it doesn't have to be in a toxic way.
Yeah.
But I think it is of preference. Because I know for me, as I found the beauty in my heart, I didn't want to be around the systemic shame.
Yeah.
Right. And I think maybe that's a lot of what's that happens with you too. You feel that's also part of it. It's like just being able to find that you learn respect for yourself and healing, and you don't want to be around the influences of people that are still infected with self-hate and shame.
Well, also, I just don't want that to rub off on me too. I know, like, especially like where I live in Seattle. I mean, there's a lot of Seattle's kind of going to shit right now, to say the least, and just like I just want to protect what power I have left. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to work. I'm still working on myself. You know what I mean? And so, in order to work on myself, I need to just focus on myself and just not be around.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's where the enlightenment is and the wisdom is. I think, when people go inside and they find that purity inside, that beauty inside, it has to be protected. We're not in an enlightened society. We're not in unity consciousness.
Yeah.
So if one is to take that step into recovering their inner realm, do that hero's journey, and really find that beauty, well, you're in a society of a lot of toxic people. I went to Prescott yesterday, and I live in a new age town, as you know, Sedona, Arizona, and there is a type of energy here, and typically you're going to be around more people that do yoga and that awareness. Although we're starting to have city people trickle in, but there's a certain toxicity about the busy herd mentality. And I went down to Prescott, and it's kind of a right-wing, family orientated. Everybody's popping babies out, and church and apple pie and baseball and that sort of thing. And it was a great contrast for me, because I forget sometimes how different I have become in doing the inner work and becoming truth realized on the inside, inner realized and aware, and then to look around and see how, be in a culture that's, everybody's doing this about, there's like, and I noticed a lot of there was a lot of what appeared to me toxic people and aggressive men. There were aggressive men, kind of eyeing me, and one guy, like, we were parked here and some guy pulls in super fast, big truck pulls in, practically hits the door pulling in, gets out, and I'm just like, wow. And I saw a lot of this energy. It's like, so we're not living on a planet of unity consciousness. So for me, when I came to Sedona, that was the closest I could get to a sense of unity consciousness with people that were aware of the spiritual path and that sort of thing. So, I think it's natural when somebody starts doing the inner work and meditation and whatever it is, they're just not going to fit in the world anymore. And I just was like, wow, I don't fit here. I don't fit in this realm of, like, church and babies making babies. I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
But I think a person who begins to do the inner work is going to find how much is involved in this. I think they may be less likely to take on more on the outside, because they're realizing the beauty in the inside requires a certain amount of attention.
Yeah, definitely requires a lot of attention, and you got to work. I'm still working on it,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be fully done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Christine says, I know Prescott like the back of my hand. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. And there's been times felt I wanted to move there, but every time I go there, I've also found too, in the spiritual path, I don't talk about this much, but the land is something that's, I found for me, is really, really important. Yeah. And I found that too with other people who have evolved on the path, that their connection to nature and the land really is something. It's like that connection with nature is an important part of this biospiritual evolution.
Yeah, I kind of feel like being in cities isn't healthy for a lot of people. Like me personally, like I have a strong desire to just, like, move to the middle of nowhere and just, like, live off the land.
Yeah.
Like I feel that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember growing up, because I grew up in a suburb of LA, and being in the city. And I remember we went up to what was it? My mother, we took a trip to visit somebody in Northern California. I forget where it was. San Luis Obispo or something, I think it was.
Nice.
And I forget what I was, we went to their house, and I was, I don't know, I was allowed to go take a walk, and I probably was like 12 or something. I forget, maybe, I don't remember. But anyway, I remember walking out there was country, and I walked up on this hill, and I sat on this hill, and the wind was just blowing, the breeze was blowing. It had tall grass, and it was just blowing it, and it was just by myself, and it was quiet, and I was just, wow. And it was like the first time I had ever been in nature where it was quiet and there was nobody around, and I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, that was the first experience with the whispering wind, where it's like, that's where I'm going. Wherever this is, that's where I'm going. And as I get older, that's what led me here. Now it's been getting busier here, but at least I can still go out in the Red Rocks where it's quiet. So, I think part of the healing involves this connecting with the earth, putting your feet into the mud, putting your feet into the creek, really getting into, I don't talk about that enough, but it really makes a difference in the grounding process in nature.
Grounding. Yep.
Yes, huge. We have Doc Nightingale in the house. Hi, Doc. I read all of your comments, by the way. So, let's take a look. Let's take a look at, for those of you who don't know, my local library has done some remodeling, and they brought these two cubicles that you can rent. Not There's no money involved, and I'm in a little tiny cubicle, which is really cool for doing live streams. So I haven't had this, and this is the first time we've done one, and it's really nice. It's like it's nice. It's nice. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying this. Yeah, I'm in the library.
I like being able to pull this stuff up on the screen too. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool too. The multimedia thing. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the origins and techniques of monarch mind control. Do you want to do that, or do you feel like you'd like to maybe talk about some other things?
Let's go ahead and dive into that.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. This is from Vigilant Citizen. Doc Nightingale says, books are the real treasure of the world skeletor. I don't know what the world skeletor is, but I will say that the search for truth and the search for knowledge, I remember, in my journey, I would just be eating up whatever I could find, whether it was a teacher or a book or whatever. And I remember I was trying to deprogram from the return of, the feeling of Jesus is going to return. Everybody's going to be judged, because I grew up with that. It was still dangling. It took me many years to deprogram, but that return of Jesus thing, I remember the moment where I realized Satan was a myth. Oh, I remember where I was at. I was driving, and I was like, oh my God, it's a myth. It's a type, right? And so I had been I forget how it happened, but I was in Ventura, California, and I felt led to go to the UCLA library. Okay. And so here I am on this adventure, like this is, of course I've got this in my biography, but it's all an adventure, and I'm like, I'm going to the UCLA library. I'm feeling led there. I don't, I'm like, what am I going to find, And so I go there, and I go into this section where there's all these old books from like the 1500s and the 1400s, and some of them were like this big, these big volumes, and I was like, holy cow, and I'm in this is all an adventure, just trying to find the truth. And I'm walking down this one aisle, and there's a little book that's just sticking out, and I grab that little book and I pull it out, and it's preterism. It is the teaching that Jesus already returned back in the around the time of Titus invading the Jerusalem and such, and that showed all these scriptures of how the apostles said, Jesus said, there are some standing here that will not die before you see you see me come back in all of my glory. And all of it, preterism, actually all relates to, when you put it in context, it all makes sense that they were all preparing for the return of Christ then. And so all these scriptures line up. Anyway, that broke the spell. But it was one little tiny book right there. This huge library of books, and that was just part of the adventures. Like, oh my God, what are the chances of that?
That's a crazy synchronicity. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. All right, so let's take a look at a very scary topic. So this is from vigilanttcitizen.com. This is where you can find, let me see. This is where you can find all the smoking gun evidence about the Hollywood cult, the one-eyed cult. Maybe we'll be able to show some of that. But she lays out monarch mind control. This is what's used by the power elite in the media industry, and it goes all the way up to the top. It's pretty scary. But Monarch mind control is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. It is a continuation of Project MKUltra, which is well documented. It is an outgrowth of the Project Paperclip, where the Nazi scientists, and there's a whole bunch of dirty laundry about the whole Nazis I'm not going to get into, but they brought over the Nazi scientists to America, and they called it Project Paperclip, and that went into the MKUltra, where they did experiments on the American people. Well, through that process, what the outgrowth of that was the Monarch Project. So,
Somebody said this the other day. They said that MKUltra was like the experimentation phase, and Monarch is where they implement certain specific techniques.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Monarch is a continuation of MKUltra, a mind control program developed by the CIA and tested on the military and civilians. The methods are astonishingly sadistic. Its entire purpose is to traumatize the victim, and the expected results are horrifying. The creation of mind-controlled slaves who can be triggered at any time to perform any action required by the handler. Say that again. The creation of a mind-controlled slave who can be triggered at any time to perform an action required by the handler. So what they were doing, what the Nazis were doing, is they were creating, they were looking at how to control humans. And they were doing all these brain experiments, these horrifying things to children. And so, again, the outgrowth of that, paperclip to MKUltra, and that was the whole point, was to make your Manchurian candidate. And it just evolved and evolved and evolved to where they could make, Britney Spears, she is a mind-controlled slave. I've seen her. I don't know if you've seen that interview where she splits into an altar. Have you seen that?
I think I might have. I might have seen that. Which one was it?
Let me find it. 1 second. Let me find it. Hold on. Britney Spears splits personality into child. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because now her parents are like being accused of like, well, I think it's even been proven that they are trying to like, take all of her money and like control her finances.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
All right, let me show you. We're going to undo this here, and I'm going to show you so you guys can actually see what an altar looks like. So we're going to share a screen. We're going to go here. We want to add audio. All right, here we go. This was an interview, and she'll just split off here.
This spasm of publicity about what happened from Mexico to London.
It was pretty rough. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Ah, weird. Hello. Oh my goodness. Hello. Ew. Strong Brittany. Yeah, it was a weird time. Ew. I'm embarrassed. Can we?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, were you able to hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you remember when she said, oh my God, strong Brittany?
Yeah.
That was her altar that kicked in, the child altar, which very well could have been the child sex slave. And so she's like, strong Brittany, bringing her back. So I don't know if you've never seen that. I mean,
I don't think I've seen that one. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's another video of Allie Carter, and maybe I could look for it, where she also splits. Let me see if I can find that one, because then you'll have two examples of what an altar looks like.
Okay.
But yeah, that was Brittany splitting.
Right, yeah, that was a complete split. That was
yeah. strong Brittany, she has to get her other character back in. Let me see, while we're talking about monarch mind control, let me see if I can find this. One second. By the way, if you guys like these videos, feel free to comment and like and share. It helps the algorithms get this channel growing. Let me try this. Ali, I'm just gonna see if I can find the video that I found on where it shows her splitting. Let me see, is this the one? There's a video of her. I don't have it queued, so I should probably have it queued before I do this. But anyway, for those of you that are watching, I recommend that you can find it. I found it on YouTube as well, but you could. Allie Carter has come public, and she is a child sex trafficked victim that has come public. She is the child of Tupac. And she reveals the underground tunnels and the trauma-based mind control where they got split into altars and used as sex slaves and different things. So just to show you, if you go, you can do it on YouTube. I'm surprised YouTube is carrying her as well. But if you go to X, and you can follow me on X at Zzenn Loren. But if you go to X and type in Allie Carter, you will find her. This is her there. She has a lot of very dangerous information that she has been sharing. I mean, she names names, folks, like like Oprah, and I mean, it's pretty intense. And there's one video where she's literally splitting off into another personality. So it's very real. She's not the only one that's been coming forward. There's more and more and more survivors are coming forward, and it's an ugly thing that society just doesn't want to look at. So anyway, Allie Carter is her name. I highly recommend you support her, talk to her, and learn about the secrets of this thing. I mean, she really blows the whistle on stuff. I mean, underground tunnels, and it's a fascinating world underground. She apparently says that her father Tupac is not dead. She said that that they fake. So some of these super famous people will fake their death to get out of public eye and have a life. And I imagine a lot of them go underground. She said that there was whole cities underground. There's whole tunnels and cities, and the data of the underground, basically human civilization. Superstars and stuff have access to it. This information has been coming forward from a lot of different sources, so it's not a joke. And Doc Nightingale says Michael Jackson faked death. I actually have believed that as well.
Yeah,
it's a little. I'm a little spun on that because one of it is they had to get rid of him. Yeah. Because they got rid of him right before they went into high gear, and with the whole takeover of America, because he was all about we are the world, we are the people. He was about unity consciousness, and what is it? Da, 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 da. It don't matter if you're black or white. Da, 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 da. So they didn't want that because they were getting ready to kick off the race war. So I don't know. I've often thought, did he agree to go underground? I don't really know, but I do believe that a lot of these celebrities, there's a program where they have a public death and they just go into a different life. And if you're publicly dead, well, you can wear masks or whatever you want and still exist in the world.
Yeah, nobody would ever know.
Let's go back to, hey, Woodland Wizardry is in the house. Doc Nightingale says, Zzenn, let me see. I've heard these are there's Nazis in Antarctica with free energy facilities. There was someone who said they saw them driving a spaceship. Well, and this is a funny thing how things have gotten so crazy. Is our government they're having hearings in the Senate asking people working in the military, are there aliens? And they're saying yes, we have actually worked with aliens. I mean, this is a conversation that's happening from the top down publicly. So no longer can the skeptics just write it off like it's whatever. So I think he's talking about Britney Spears. She was in a horrible conservatorship. She was so abused, made into money bag instead of a human being. Alters helps to disassociate yourself from your trauma. Yeah.
And
MJ
that's also, that.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, he's just saying MJ had a lot of power. When you have that level of power and influence, it becomes dangerous. Yeah. And I mean, he was a messianic figure, as far as I'm concerned, and he knew what was happening to the children. I know there's people went after him. There were pedo accusations and stuff. Hey, did he slip into some stuff? I don't know, but I do know that the fruits of his life was to bring the world together and to raise awareness about the children. So I do think he was a messianic figure, but he would have never fit after what happened after that. Once the COVID thing kicked in and once all the race war kicked in, I mean, he wouldn't have fit into that narrative. Anyway, you were saying?
I was going to say, and it's very likely that the small portion of people that went through the programs that I went through, that they say it's the best thing that ever happened to them, that they're still under mind control and that they've just disassociated themselves so far from the trauma because the mind control works so well for them. You know what I mean? So it works. That's what I tell people. It fucking works, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like the child that says, I didn't have a bad childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
But they struggle with relationships. They struggle with things, and they just like, well, I love my parents. Why would I? I don't want to think that they did bad. It was good for me to get spanked so hard.
Yeah, I deserved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you really know. Okay, so check out Allie Carter. She's a sex trafficking survivor, and just type in Allie Carter on YouTube or the X, and she will reveal things that you may or may not want to know about people, very famous people. She's the child of Tupac. She's explaining what happened in these freak-off parties. Very, very dangerous, and she's having to travel and kind of, stay. She's having to be really incognito because they don't want her speaking out. So give her some support. Go check her out. All right, let's go back to trauma. We're talking about now trauma-based mind control. The Monarch Project, which I've said is an outgrowth of mkultra, which is well-documented mind control projects, experiments on the American public. Let me see here. So let's get back to this. So Monarch is a programming is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. It is a continuation of Project mkultra, a mind control program developed by the CIA, tested on military and civilians. The methods are astonishingly sadistic. Its entire purpose is to traumatize the victim, and the expected results are horrifying. The creation of a mind-controlled slave who can be triggered at any time to perform any action required by the handler. While mass media ignores this issue, over 2 million Americans have gone through the horrors of this program. This article looks at the origins of Monarch programming and some of its methods and symbolism. We're not going to, of course, we're just going to touch on this, but so it's a mind control technique comprising elements of satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder. It utilizes a combination of psychology, neuroscience, and occult rituals to create within the slaves an altered persona that can be triggered and programmed by the handlers. Monarch slaves are used by several organizations connected with world elite in fields such as the military, sex slavery, and in entertainment industry. This article will look at the origins. Now, I'm also going to show you, we might as well do this, Jordan, is the celebrities that are under this control.
Yep.
Now, of course, I can't read this whole article, okay, but that just kind of explains what it is. So they have different type of altars. Like one is like the sex kitten, and you will see the celebrities are wearing. They'll be wearing like leopard outfits with leopard fur, leopard. What I'm looking for,
Print.
patterns or stripes and anything related to a cat. The other thing you're going to see is the monarch butterfly all over the place. And that is the monarch programming, where you're a caterpillar and they put you through the programming and you become a butterfly, but you're an industry slaved, you're an industry owned butterfly. So it's like they force, what I believe they do is they force the hatching of the soul, but it hatches into a cage of their own handling and mind control. The roots of this, I believe, are Scientology. I believe that is where the roots of this all roads, well, ultimately all roads lead to Rome, but in this area, I believe all roads lead to Scientology, Black Dianetics. So you have to pay for a membership to see, more than 3 articles. So I don't think I can get too far into this. I would rather show people. But the origins of, throughout the course of history, several accounts have been recorded describing rituals and practices resembling mind control. One of the earliest writings giving reference to the use of occultism to manipulate the mind can be found in the Egyptian Book of Dead. Keep in mind, folks, that just because it's occult doesn't mean it's evil, but it can be used for evil.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Christians do, is they throw everything into the same thing. No, it's not. It's just like anything else. You either use the occult forces for good or for evil. So it is a compilation of rituals heavily studied by today's secret societies, which describes methods of torture and intimidation to create trauma, the use of potions and drugs, and the casting of spells, ultimately resulting in total enslavement of the initiate. Other events ascribed to black magic, sorcery, and demon possession, where the victim is animated by an outside force, are also ancestors of monarch programming. So, in the best of what what's being pointed at is we have an inner ecosystem, and so when you're doing the inner work and the soul flowering, all of these things are beautiful and natural, and you can have servitors and entities that come from within you that you can interact, and you can have that in the ancient world, everything was alive and the trees were alive, and there was this whole thing. And so what all of this has done is they invert it, and they use these abilities against you, and they invert them. And we have the ability of creating these wonderful, like there's a realm, the kingdom of heaven is around us, the Summerland. We can connect with all this. We can create, anyway. I think you know what I'm pointing to. And this is all turned into an awful thing. The powers that be, the unconscious, the darker realms, the mystical, all this stuff is turned into evil. So let me just show, because I only have about 20 minutes left, because we could get into Joseph Mengele, where this all started with the Nazis and how it was carried over to America, how children were experimented on. I'm sorry, I did this backwards. Where children were experimented on. It starts with this thing goes back to Joseph Mengele and the Angel of Death in the Nazi camps, where they did experiments on children. And then through the Project Paperclip, it was moved over to America, and where the MKUltra was, which is well documented, where they did experiments on children and Americans, back in 1961, and that grew into monarch programming. And so this is a very long article that we're not going to get into, but one thing I want to show, let me see here.
They also did this in Japan with Unit 731, I believe.
Oh, really? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, look into Unit 731. It was like Japan's version of like a Nazi camp. They did experiments on people. I'm certain they did mind control. I haven't looked too far into it, but it's really horrific what they did in Japan too.
Well, here's an example of it here, and I got to be careful how much of this I say, but this is what's used in the trauma to get them to split off into altars: confinement in cages, boxes, coffins, burial with a little bit of breathing.
They did that in one of the boarding schools called High Impact. They actually kept kids in cages.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Or tragic, should I say? Interesting. Spinning, blinding light, electric shock, skinning, top layers of skin. I think there's also boiling, electric shock, restraint with ropes, chains, near drowning. So they're inducing the soul hatching. They're inducing the kundalini too. Sleep deprivation, sensory deprivations, application of snakes, spiders, maggots, rats to induce fear. Near-death experiences, commonly asphyxiation by choking or drowning, forced to perform, the children in many cases are forced to perform heinous things on other children. Anyway, this goes on and on. It's utterly. Oh, remember I was talking about the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz was also used in this. There's a big thing with Fritz Springmeier who talks about this. He gets into depth on this about how the Wizard of Oz was used in these mind control programs. And Fritz Springmeier, he's up here. He wrote, let me see if I can find it. He wrote How to Create a Illuminati Mind Controlled Slave, I believe it is.
Yep, I believe that's correct. Yep.
Yeah. This is his name right here if anybody wants to learn more about Fritz. Oh, yeah, the Illuminati formula to create a mind control slave. That'll blow your mind. It's a very dense read. But anyway, so like I said, this is and this shows like the different wave. Hold on a second. What do they call it? Brain waves that they work on to create the altars and to program them to make them slaves. So this comes from the top down. This is a very elite, a very dark side of the elite. Okay, so let's see if we will get I'll be able to bring up to show everybody what it looks like in the music industry, the media industry, what this looks like. So you're going to see the one eye, you're going to see the butterfly, you're going to see the beta kittens. All of these people are involved in this cult, and they have different altars for different purposes. Sex slavery, the sex kitten thing is to be used for, someone, wants, they send them to a politician or somebody, and their altar kicks in and they do the favors of the, or they're a superstar, on stage or whatever. All right. So let me just show you really quick. This just give you a taste of the industry. A lot of mocking of Christianity happens. So here you're going to see people keep walking past me, staring at me. So you're going to look at the one eye thing. Okay, you're going to see this everywhere. Now I want you to notice with King Charles. Notice the butterfly. Do you see the butterfly in the on the left of King Charles? So I want you to notice butterflies. Of course, notice the one eye is everywhere. Anyone who says, we wonder if that's just they happen to be covering their eye just for fun. You'll see the one eye everywhere. This is all basically they're saying I am part of the cult. It's an industry cult. The spider web is another thing. That's another thing that's involved in this thing. Of course, the trans thing is big. in this thing as well. It's very important. Here we go with the one eye. The one eye. One eye. One eye. Of course, the symbolism of the triangle, the pyramid, and then of course you got Madonna and the sacrilegious, the inversion of Christianity. Now, see what they're doing. They're a flip side of Christianity. It's all part of the public, dividing the public like good and bad, right and wrong, that sort of thing. So that's another thing that's being played out here. None of this would have any significance without Christianity. There would be no devil without Christianity. The devil was invented by Christianity. So it's all part of that, divide and conquer business. So as you see, another mocking the crucifixion.
A lot of them are Luciferian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see the horns. You see the horns and the one eye. You see the one eye again. And each one of these, just in case anybody was wondering, what I'm doing is I'm just going, if I click on one of these, I will open up an entire article of pictures of more of these. All I am showing is the front cover of that month right here. You also, there's a lot of sadomasochism. So you got the black hand choking her. You'll see a lot of monarch programming when you really start to understand this. So here's the one eye again. Okay, so there's the kitten. You'll see a lot of the beta kittens. So you can't get around this. When you see something like this, someone's like going, "Oh, this is not true." Oh, I see. Right. I got just about 10 minutes left before I got to go. There you go there. So, if someone's like, "Oh, they just happen to be showing one eye just because it's a neat thing." Really? What's going on here? What's going on here? Everybody's doing it. There's the pyramid, right? You should, some of the things that Justin Bieber's coming forward regarding the Diddy freak parties.
Yeah.
Some of these people are coming forward to expose this cult. There we go.
They supposedly did to Justin. They've done probably to a lot of kids, but what they did to him was supposedly, allegedly,
Yeah.
But I personally believe him. He was like tied down and some shit and like abused and stuff. So
well, there's more coming forward from the cult, and they're exposing it. But you look at we're talking politicians, we're talking entertainers, we're talking actors, and there's the beta kitten. And what do you got behind her? You've got the butterfly. So the monarch programming, monarch, butterfly, and you've got the beta kitten right there. A lot of also transhumanism. See, the problem is a lot of people will look at this and go, "Oh, it's all of this is evil. Transhumanism is evil." No, all of this is being used in a cult for evil. All this there you go with the butterfly over the mouth. There's the one eye. This just goes on and on and on and on. It's an unbelievable. And it's a shocking thing for people who had no idea that everybody's in the club.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney. Look at this. Look at this.
What's that George Carlin said? It's a club and you're not in it.
Yep. And basically what they're doing is they join it and then they publicly, what they're doing here is they're publicly, what I'm looking for, this is like you show your allegiance by publicly doing this. So anyway, this is all connected to the deep of the deep of the deep of the deep, deep state cult. I see how I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's just unbelievable. All right, we got to bring this to a close. But so as we were talking about in the very beginning, any form of mind control on the subtlest level to the deepest, darkest level is about bringing a sentient being, sentient human expression of life out of present time with this moving, flowing imagination that interacts with the trees and with life into where it's invaded in shock. And then the present time is now identified with an image of trauma, and they're locked into it. And that's where you can control others. This is why generational child abuse has lasted for so long. You can control a being by invading their universe through trauma, by traumatizing them, and through force. So anyway, any closing words from you, and I think we'll bring it to a close.
Well, I just want people to be aware that the stuff that was happened to me in the boarding school is still happening to a lot of kids. The mind control stuff is happening to kids as we speak right now. I'm certain of it. And it's just really important to get the word out there about these things, because it's still happening. It didn't just happen in the past, and it's going to continue to happen until we make a big enough scene about it and stand up to them. We need to keep on sharing this stuff, and this needs to be like on regular news. Like this should be like the top story every single day until this ends. There should be riots and protests in the streets, like for the children. And I just don't see it. And I see a lot of passion for a lot of other things, but what about the passion for the children?
Yes.
They're literally our future.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. I think that's a perfect note to bring this home. I want to thank everybody for being here and making your comments and participating in the comment thread. And so this is the first actual stream I've been able to do in this library. Now has these little silent rooms I can be in. So hopefully we'll be able to do more of these. But anyway, appreciate everybody watching.
I was going to say maybe we could do a part 2 follow-up about how to deprogram from this, since we
that's right, we didn't cover that. Okay, let's do that. Let's talk about that. We didn't get into that. We were going to get into that. I just didn't know I was going to be locked into an hour and a half at the library here. So, all right, so noted. Let's do that. Thanks, Jordan, and we'll be chatting on the phone, and we'll plan that next one. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you guys. Bye.
And we'll catch you on the next one.